is a location in my head. It has no geography. So Dream Villa can appear anywhere. And likewise, the inhabitants can appear anywhere. So I could be walking in Rungstad and see someone and I know that they're a Dream Villa inhabitant. So it's this fictitious place that was building up in my head. And I would go out every night, starting in Goa, late at night, and just drive around till I found a Dream Villa tree or a Dream Villa house, and most importantly, a Dream Villa neon sign. And the neon sign is interesting because I was driving another evening with the wonderful poet and writer Vikram Seth. And I used to think these neon lights were one of the ugliest inventions of the 20th century. And he said, oh, look at those neon lights on a curving road. And he said they look like musical notes. And suddenly, the way I looked at tube lights completely changed. And I became obsessed with them. And then the beginning of Dream Villa, I think, actually goes back to the full moon of May 2008. I had gone out to photograph the full moon. I had recently started working in color, making mainly blue images. Color was very new to me. And somehow the moon I've always felt very, very close to. It's very, very dear to me. So I was photographing the full moon. I came back late at night and woke up in the morning and looked for my mobile and looked down from my window and saw a lot of police there. And I went down and I saw all my bags very neatly placed. And I couldn't understand that I'd woken up at night to do my packing and went out. And then the police told me that there had been a burglary and some people had come into my house. And they had actually come into the room which is upstairs. I was sleeping on a large wooden bed. They had gone under my bed and taken my bags out. And I had filled my room with dried white bougainvillea flowers. So the floor would make a lot of noise if you walked on it. So obviously they had gassed me from outside. And they took all my things down, but they only took my used film. They left my new film. Of course they took my cameras. And then they took a very ordinary watch, a very ordinary ring. The watch was not so ordinary. It was actually a very expensive Danish designer, but it looked quite ordinary. The ring was truly ordinary. And they left big silver necklaces. So it was a strange robbery. And I had just been photographing into the night to see what happens to color in complete darkness, just. And so I had shot about 40 rolls of that. So that's what the robbers took. So strange robbery. And then I got obsessed with the idea of a robber and started to sometimes wear a headlight and go into friends' homes as though I was a robber. And somehow Dream Villa's menacing quality, which is a big shift from Blue Book, which was the earlier blue color work, I think I really owe to that very peculiar situation that happened, that full moon in Goa in 2008, May. Beautiful. When it's a print show, it's very beautiful because it's daylight film, highly saturated colors. The prints, the sea prints are so beautiful, you want to lick them. And yet the beauty is just superficial because actually it's not a very pleasant place at all. But everyone gets completely seduced by its beauty. So yes, the robbery and something in Dream Villa has opened, there's no going back. So there's the work before Dream Villa and there's work from Dream Villa onwards. And then of course Dream Villa brings this sort of narrative in because the only thing that connects all the work is this feeling for a place called Dream Villa in my head. And then many, many months later, I was coming back from a party in Calcutta at 2 in the morning, and I looked at this gate and I saw Dream Villa written there. And I thought, I must be really drunk. I'm imagining my project written across gates. And this was below a building that I've lived for many years. And then I came down in the morning and it was there. I photographed it at night. So the picture you see in Dream Villa is that picture I made to just be sure that it's real. And then came back in the morning to check again that it's real. And it was there. So who knows when Dream Villa really entered my subconscious or my dream world. But the dream world and the Dream Villa world is not a very pretty world, I don't think. For me, the literary inspiration is really key in photography, for me. And making pictures, like I was saying, even a blind man can make pictures here. Making pictures is maybe just 10% of what I do. And the rest of it is really thinking about the form, the editing, and the sequence. And in that, I'm always looking to literature. Do I want to make a book of poems? Do I want to make a sonnet? Then what happened is this might even become a novel. Can I aspire to that? The sort of single image on the wall is really of no interest to me. So it's either a projection or a group of images. Because they are getting into some other form. And the form of the single image is not interesting. Of the photographic image is not interesting. I came to photography through music, through photographing a classical musician. And when I should have been in college studying graphic design, I was traveling every winter with this musician and other musicians. A great tabla player, great musician, Zakir Hussain. And then as my student project, I made a book about him. And it was the first day when I picked up my camera and somebody asked me to not take a picture of the concert, and I fell. And I came out and I was sitting on the steps waiting for Zakir Hussain to come out. I was very insulted that someone had pushed me and I had fallen. I was 18, and to fall in a hall full of people on my backside was the greatest shame possible. So I waited outside, and Mr. Zakir Hussain came out, and I said, "Mr. Hussain, I'm a young student today. Someday I'll be an important photographer, and then we'll see." And then I started crying. And he sat with me and he said, "Look, what's the problem?" And Ravi Shankar had added a fret to his sitar. And he didn't want to document it. As simple as that. He was experimenting, so photography was not allowed. But he said I could come on a tour with him and I could photograph as much as I wanted. And so I sat up all night. I was 18. My father had just died a few months ago. And I thought, do I go? Do I not go? In those days, after the partition, he's Muslim, he's a musician. How can an 18-year-old just go? And I thought, this is it. This is my ticket to freedom. If I can become a photographer, I don't have to follow any of the roles that society wants me to follow. So that's when I decided to be a photographer. And I traveled with him every winter. And so I really, really learned withholding, restraint, knowing just when to stop, and focus. All that I owe to Zakir. This sort of single-minded focus on whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is you're performing, that doesn't matter. But sort of like the rigor of the craft I learned from him. Great Indian classical music is all about knowing when to stop, of not completing the story, of stopping at a point where the audience says, "Oh, if only he had played for another 5 minutes." And from Zakir, absolute master of focus. Otherwise when you're 18, you want to do so many different things, and one day you want to be a masseur, and you want to learn calligraphy, and you want to learn, all kinds of things. And Zakir just kept saying, you have to focus. You can't get distracted. You can't be like other kids these days. And so that's how I am, totally focused even now, and completely independent and free, as I wanted to be.
you.